What's up, everybody? This is Eric Beach, and this is The Journey Well, and we are joined with Aimee Young, one of the women that we work with through Project Echelon, and I'm very excited to have her on this call today because, honestly, we've never actually had a conversation, but we've digitally communicated through texting so many times, but it's such a strange thing that in this day and age that we could go for so long without actually seeing face-to-face or let alone speaking to each other, isn't it?
Yes, I know we've done a lot of communication and haven't officially met.
That's like the next level. Like at team camp, that was Josh Boguslawski, he's been on the board for years, and even Eric Hill has never met him in person until team camp, and it was like this surreal moment. Like we have worked on Zoom calls and figured that, but we never actually like embraced. I've never seen you face to face, and that is such a bizarre thing that my parents could not relate to.
Absolutely.
But what I want to talk about today is kind of your story, and to kind of kick off into it, I just want to give you the floor to kind of maybe dig into a little bit, whatever you feel is relevant to saying how you got into military service and, where you're at with it now. And then we'll just, take different pieces of that and break it apart and get into the fitness aspects of it and see where we go.
Well, my story, I guess everybody's is different, right? So mine's going to be even more different in the means of I am not in military as in Department of Defense. I'm actually an active duty officer in this health service. So we're still a uniform service. We're considered active duty. We wear a uniform every day. It may not, some people may not recognize it. Some Navy people may recognize it because it looks a little bit like the Navy. And so it's just not well known. It's not as well known as other services. And the public health service serves the underserved population. So we work in Indian Health Service, Bureau of Prisons, CDC, FDA, all different. There's a whole bunch of different areas in which we work and serve. And so I serve particularly in the Indian Health Service. So I started my career in Phoenix, Arizona, I work in healthcare. I'm a pharmacist for the public health service. And I started in Phoenix, Arizona. And then after about 7 years, it took about that long for my husband to convince me to want to move to Alaska. So here I am in Anchorage, Alaska, working at the Indian Health Hospital here. And so what's a little different is that I'm still active duty. I have 16 and a half years in, which I can't believe that it's gone by this. I can't believe I'm that old. I can't believe it's gone by that quickly. And I got recruited by Jared Sarton to Project Echelon. So we all know Jared. He's one of the original guys. And what I feel is unique is that since I'm still active duty, I'm still a leader in my service. I'm a leader in my community, and I feel as though I'm a leader for Project Echelon, and it really kind of meshes all the worlds together. So public health service is about health and wellness, and we're big on response. So we had officers deploy for Ebola. We had officers deploy for hurricanes and set up medical shelters. And of course, with COVID, we have all kinds of deployments that have happened that we've responded to as well. And so it all just kind of meshes together. And I feel as if I can use the bike to motivate colleagues, and to get more people in to enjoy it and to do it and just kind of lead by example and get my kids. That's a huge thing. Get my family and my kids excited about it. It all just kind of meshed really well together. And so I think the support that I need from the bike team is a little different than others. And what I've gained from it and what it's helped me with is a little different than others. It's helped me get the tools that I need to help empower other people and recruit other members to Project Echelon.
And I think that's great because what even Project Echelon, when we started it, we didn't want to be all things to all people. We wanted to do what we do, and we wanted to do it really well. And the reason that's important is stories like yours. There isn't a veteran, there isn't an active duty service member that has the exact same story as somebody else. So nobody needs the exact same recipe. As a pharmacist, it's like medication isn't one dose for every single patient for every single thing. Like there's a titration, there's figuring out what you need. So it's really beneficial to have stories like yours, because one that it's coming up in me is that if you wait until everything is horrible and you're in that insanity, that's when bad things happen. And our goal was
Absolutely.
to get to people before they ever get there. Like, the ultimate goal is not to save people in active suicide thought. It's to give someone something that they never have to get there because they have a vehicle. So even from your perspective, saying that, you maybe haven't had this tragic story and you have these PTSD spirals, like you're doing well, how much do you attribute the bike to maintaining that level of wellness in your own life?
Oh, absolutely. I think, I've thought about talking to you this week and really thought about and that's exactly what the bike has done. The last 2 years of COVID, I work in healthcare, I work inpatient, so I work in a hospital. And so there was no, like, my life, I still went to work every day. I didn't have like hobbies that I was able to pick up, and because I had a whole bunch of spare time. I was just doing everything I could to stay sane because I was walking into COVID every day. And I was involved with incident command for part of it. And it was scary. It was super scary. And right at the very beginning, I think April 2020, I got a bike trainer and I started biking. I would come home and I like learned about Zwift, and like got my husband and I thought that we could share a trainer, and that lasted about a week of us
Yeah.
standing next to each other like, so how much longer do you have in your ride? And so we ended up getting two trainers by April 2020, and it was just what I needed. It was this outlet, and at the same time I was able to connect with my coach through Project Echelon and learn tips and tricks and ask an ungodly amount of questions to my coach and connect with him. And it turned into virtual racing and connecting with the women and connecting with so many more people. And I just look back, and all of that has helped me so much. Like, that's what got me through. The bike is what got me through all of these challenging times. I even had a really rough day earlier this week, and all I could think about on my way home was beating that Strava segment that my girlfriend and I raced on the other day. And I was like, I'm going to go get on my bike and just kill it. And I didn't have the opportunity to go beat that Strava segment. That's for a future date. But I did get on my bike, and I did a very hard workout and that's like, I think just to be able to go to that and have that as a tool is like, really positively impacted me.
Okay, that's a good point, because I've used it similarly where, it's a healthy place for aggression sometimes. Better than raging on my family, I would go and do this bike, and I certainly say that that's not how we only deal with it. Like, it's positive dopamine, it's positive chemicals in our body that gives us objectivity to maybe go back into our daily life with a little bit more balance and a little bit more distance. So when you're doing this, when you're going on, even let's back up to the Strava segment. You're in something's going on. Your elevated state, you're triggered, whatever that situation is. How does that Strava segment, does it pull you out of that cascading feeling of uncontrolled or anger or whatever you're feeling? And does it then give you enough distance to then re-engage with that situation at times because you were able to leave it and shift your focus?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and like I said, I didn't get to go do that. I just thought about it. I was like, well, and I knew I had a hard workout that day, and I was, my husband wasn't home, so I had kid duty too, and so I was like, well, I'll just go take care of it on the bike. And I got off the bike, and I I told my friends that I had a pity party for one that night, had a glass of wine with dinner, was like cooking dinner for the kids by myself. And I feel like after my pity party for one and after my really hard bike ride, I got up the next day and I was like, yeah, okay, like this is all right. It's gonna be okay. This all happens for a reason, and just be able to carry on.
Yeah. And that pity party, I think that's a really interesting point too, because a lot of times we have this idea of positivity over everything. But speak a little bit about that, about giving yourself, do you give yourself space and time to be like, you know what? I'm just going to feel bad for a few minutes. I'm going to let myself feel sad because I know in an hour, in 15 minutes, like I'm just going to get back into life. But right now I just need to sit with this.
Yeah. Yeah, I really feel like that's kind of was my whole plan, really. I think it was just, I'm just gonna wallow in myself for a little while, and then I'm just gonna pick myself back up. I had, it was work related. I had to go back to work. I had to show back up. So I just showed back up the next day. Like, I can't like I still have to do my job, I
Yeah.
can't just dwell on these things. So it was very helpful. All of it was really.
Yeah. Well, your job is healthcare. It is service, and a lot of veterans, a lot of active people, service is a big part of it. And I like to find out, is service something that's been a big part of your life leading up to the
Oh,
military, to all that?
oh my gosh, absolutely. That's just kind of, yeah, I mean, we're public health service, like, that's just always been that's always been a thing. That's always wanting to help and wanting to make a difference and wanting to make an impact in others. And whether that be in the patients I take care of, whether that be my coworkers, whether that be the people I lead, whether it be my family, that's always service is definitely top of my morals.
Mm. Do you think that is that where does that come from? I should say, is that something you developed from growing up?
Oh, yeah, I guess. I don't know. It's just kind of, I guess I would say it's in my nature. I mean, um, my parents are very motivated and um, both in the healthcare as well. And so, yeah, I guess that's where it comes from. I have never actually thought about that. I do have grandparents that served in the military, and so there might be some influence there as well.
There's a lot of that in a lot of people I've met, even myself. My grandpa, he was World War II, and then there was Korea, and my dad was drafted to Vietnam, and then so he always told me everyone should spend 2 years in the military just to grow up, which I could see it, but also understand how that's not teaching you everything about being an adult. So I look at the family unit as being like a lot more of a predictor of what's being modeled. And I look at Eric Hill and Emily Hill and their boys, and I see what's being modeled to them. And I just wonder how much of that is inborn personality and how much of that is just in the environment you grow up in. You latch onto it. And I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen those guys, but those kids are just flying around on bikes and doing crazy stuff
Yeah.
that my mother would never have let me done.
If we've actually had our kids do a lot of there's a few things that our kids have done that might, like we weren't or we didn't have the means to do or anything when we were kids. One of them was ski jumping. My husband was never allowed to do the ski jumping, and so we had our kids try that just to see, because my husband was never allowed to do that. So I get that.
That's funny. That was one of my
But I
dreams.
oh yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. They didn't like it. So we stopped doing it, unfortunately.
Mm.
I think what we try to teach with our kids too is that our kids have so many opportunities and that we never had, right? And I'm sure you could probably think about that even with your kids. And I don't necessarily like to just walk around and say you have so much more than anybody ever. I don't
Yeah.
think that helps with a lesson, but I do think that making sure that they appreciate what what they do, what they are getting and what they're doing, and understand that it's not normal. My kids live on a alpine ski hill all winter
Mm.
because my husband runs the ski team, and that's not a lot of kids get to do that, right? They don't get to
Yeah.
run around a ski hill and free ski for, you know, every weekend of the winter. So it's things like that where we really try to and remind them every once in a while. It's actually like a full connection, like we can bring skiing full circle too. So the ski hill is a smaller one. It's not a Colorado resort by any means.
Sure.
It's on the Army Air Force Base. And so that is actually where we met Jared. So Jared and my
Uh,
husband, Jared's the vice president of the ski team and my husband runs it. My husband's the president. So that's like where we can bring full circle on how we met Jared and how our service has continued even, you know, even extracurricular and everything. And
mm.
so yeah, so it's pretty great. What my kids have lived definitely have spent their entire childhood on that ski hill.
I love that though. What you said about it bringing full circle, and I think about this with people who are successful, and people ask like, how did you get to where you are? And we're talking about how you deal with certain traumas or how you cope through cycling and your day-to-day stuff, and it's so hard to answer that question because you wouldn't have planned to meet Project Echelon. How do you get involved? Like, oh, a ski hill wouldn't factor into that equation. You wouldn't assume, but I love the randomness of like, oh, I didn't even know Jared was into skiing at all, let alone being a coach. That's so great.
Yes, he's actually, we have known their family. We've camped a lot in the summer, so we camp a lot as groups, and we've known his family. I mean, we have pictures of our kids little together 5 years ago or so.
Wow.
So yeah, we've been out there. COVID's kind of messed up that some, but
a little bit.
Yeah, we're trying to get back. We're definitely slowly getting back to all that. So
I hear you. Me too. And you're getting, I mean, you're not getting into cycling, but when did that cycling thing happen? When did you get into it?
When my husband and I first started dating, he had an old steel frame bike, and I had a Target mountain bike, and he had a steel frame road bike from his dad. We lived in Phoenix at the time, so lots of good biking. And we would go out in the morning and go on a bike ride, and he would smoke me. I could barely keep up with him because he's on a road bike and I'm on the Target mountain bike. So I decided, it was shortly after I graduated school, and so I decided that I wanted to buy a bike. So I was like, I'm getting a bike. So I went to REI and I got a Novara road bike. And I think my husband regrets that day because it's been like an obsession of mine ever since. About a week after that, he got one too. So we were both, because of course then I started smoking him on his little steel frame bike. So we were riding Novara bikes and biking all around Arizona. And right before we got married, we did a 100-mile bike ride. And just did a lot of biking down there and really enjoyed it. Unfortunately, my husband had a foot injury, and so we had a little bit of a break in biking. Almost thought that we weren't even going to bring our bikes to Alaska when we moved here. And we found some bike shoes that worked well for his foot injury and discovered that Anchorage is connected by trails and parks, and we got little trailers for our kids, and we essentially explored Alaska on bike. The first year that we were here, biked all around, drug the kids around, and stopped at parks, and that would break it up for them and get snacks, and then we'd get back on the bike. And so I've always loved it. I didn't road bike as much as I wanted until I really got into this, into Project Echelon.
That's awesome. That's probably so many memories, and I'm curious. I know that racing is something that you've done virtually, but is the power of the bike in those moments, or is it more of the racing for you?
I really enjoy the long endurance, like the just like casual-ish rides. I've actually talked to a really, really good friend of mine that's into biking, and I don't really enjoy getting super nervous before a race. I also have the tendency for it to take over me. For example, last year, I was preparing with my coach for a time trial race, and it was about this time last year because the race is next weekend. And it's one that I've done for probably 6 or 7 years. And last year I told my coach, I want to beat my time by 2 minutes. And this is only a 28-minute bike race. So I was like, I want to beat my time I want to smoke it. So my coach prescribed me workouts. We talked strategy. We did all the things, and it consumed me. I know my husband was telling friends, oh my God, I can't wait till this bike race is over because like she's just crazy. I talked to everybody I could that would listen to me about it, talked about my strategy, talked about what I was going to do. So I planned what I was going to eat that day. I was so incredibly nervous. And then the morning of the race, of course, I'm warming up, and there's a whole bunch of commotion in the parking lot. Somebody runs over a bike with their van, causes like all kinds of distractions and stuff. I get to the start line a little later than I wanted. I do the whole race, and I cannot figure out why. First off, I watched my time go right by, my goal time, and I was still out on the course, and my legs were burning. I was like, what in the, this is so, I've trained so hard for this. Like, what is going on? Why did I just miss my time? Why do my legs hurt so bad? Why can't I sprint at the end? It was really frustrated. Couldn't figure it out. I did not get my goal time. I got a minute later than my PR. And then 2 days later, found out that my brakes were on my bike. So it was a good lesson. It was a very good lesson, but at the same time, sometimes the races, like, maybe it's not for me.
Yeah. Well, I'm with you.
I don't like all the nerves, but then I also get a little pharmacist. I don't know if you know, or very type A or a little OCD. So I get really all built up for it. And then like just to get let down is kind of frustrating.
Oh, that's, yeah. And it's so out of your hands in so many ways, you know, like so much can happen that all the planning can go wrong. And I rode a race at the Project Echelon, the Omnium, a year or two ago. And my brake was very on, and it was very evident to everyone because it was just and then the course official was like, "You're gonna have a really bad day." I said, "I absolutely already am." And thank goodness Emily helped me. Like after it was a circuit race, and she flipped my bike over and inspected it, and she said the same thing happened to her. She flipped something, and the brake was off. It was apparently because I went from aluminum to carbon wheels, and that was wider, so I had to adjust the setting.
Oh yeah.
And I was just like, "This is stupid." And I DNF'd. I like pulled off the last lap. I was like, I'm like a lap down at this point, like whatever. And I was just mad.
Yeah, I was in tears. Oh my gosh. Because it was 2 days later that then I realized like I'm wheeling my bike in the house, and I was like, what's that sound?
I can't even move it.
I could laugh about it now, but I did not laugh about it then. No. But just all of that goes into it. So now this year, same thing. That bike race is next weekend. I'm doing it. I'm still planning on crushing that PR. But I'm also trying to make sure that I don't let it consume me. So yeah, it's like a fine balance. I like racing. I like going out with other women or other like colleagues and stuff and racing and stuff. But I also feel as though I can get a little too competitive, and then it's just not fun.
Yeah, I hear you. But that's really tough though. Like the balance that you're talking about. I'll use the example of chess. And my wife and I are very competitive, and she's usually better at everything than me. And if she's not, she will be. Like ping pong, I used to be able to beat her, and she worked at the YMCA, and so she started practicing. And then a month later, she just smoked me. And I'm like, what the hell? And she's like, well, I have a ping pong. I just practice. I'm like, that's not fair. Let me be good at it. Then we play chess, and she beats me at that. And I was talking to some friends. I'm like, I don't even really want to be good at chess. I just want to beat her at chess. And I was like, should I not practice chess because I'm not doing it for the right reason? And they're like, yeah, you probably just shouldn't play chess. And I'm like, so I stopped playing chess, and I was like going to study it. And I'm like, I don't even care. I just want to win. And I'm like, that's probably not a healthy mindset. So with what you're saying about racing, and I've experienced it, I've done 2 Ironman, whatever. And I don't want to do that anymore because I realized I was mad at my family because I needed to train so much, and I would blame them for getting in the way of my training. And I'm like, this thing isn't really ultimately that important in the world, like of my world. It's like the fitness, the wellness, the riding, the running. That's what was important. And my question to you, as I think about this with a pro race team, I look at what those guys do, and I don't think I have that. And I don't think it's a bad thing. I just don't have that focus to carve out that time to train, to recover, to fuel and learn, and everything they have to do to get ready for those level of races. I feel like my connection to it always has to be just for fun, like just to enjoy it and to push myself. Like I would love to do a time trial, and push the watts and just strung it out like every once in a while. Do you feel like that's kind of where it's at, or is it it's just a mindset thing where, you know, you and I might just get too worked up for a race and we just need to work on it. What do you think?
I think it's both, and I think it goes back to balance. So I think like I don't like butterflies in my stomach. That doesn't fuel me.
Mm-hmm.
But beating my last time, that fuels me. So my competitiveness is still there, but at the same time, I could do. My coach could put in all the workouts and I'm very compliant. I get those green checks because I'm very like OCD, and
Yeah.
you know the coach will say, "Oh, you don't have to do all those." I'm like, "No, no, 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 no. It's there and I'm not going to get a red. I'm going to get a green check." And so I'm very good at following those instructions. So I think that I could be very disciplined like that, and I feel as though I could. Maybe I missed my calling when I was younger to be a pro rider. But I have a family and I have a job and I have a life essentially, and it's really the balance, and I have to figure out like how I can incorporate this biking and still be satisfied with it and still like not completely get consumed where I forget about my family. So I've really tried in 2020 when I was racing a lot virtually for Project Echelon, not because I needed to, only just because I was really challenging myself, and it was straining the family. I was getting pretty obsessed over it and everything. So I've really done my best to make sure that I just get my rides in. Family knows, you know, in the morning or right after work, I want to do that, and then the rest of the attention is on everybody else. So
Right.
yeah, it's hard balance.
How do you do that though? Are you right now not putting races on the calendar? Because you know, I've found when I used to have races on the calendar, it became this has to happen, and if you get in my way, this is a problem. But if I don't have races on the calendar, I can just go do my rides, and I can still have a structured workout, but I don't have as deep of a feeling of if I don't have that race on the calendar. So I'm curious, are you finding ways to keep that balance where you don't let yourself become obsessed?
I have a couple races on the calendar, so I think right now, like I'm finding the balance of training when I can and doing the best I can and knowing that it's not perfect, but I'm going to do the best I can. I think after those races are over, I've talked about this too, because before I had these races on my calendar, I was like January or so, I was kind of feeling like, well, I really like these workouts. They're fun to do, but I don't really have anything I'm working towards. And so I kind of feel like I need some kind of goal to set out for. Is nice to train for, but it, I think that maybe after the couple races that I do have this summer, I'm throwing around the idea of maybe trying to take that hill, maybe like more of a charity thing. Yeah. And train for that, because that's really where my heart is. And I really enjoy the just going and biking with the community and meeting people and riding with them and chatting and accomplishing a goal that everybody thinks you're crazy for doing.
Yeah, I'm with you, sister. With you all the way on that one, because I went to the team camp and I was so mad that I had my camera and not my bike when the Grand Fundo rolled out with 200 and some riders. I was just watching them go and going, why not me? Like next year,
Yeah.
I told Eric Hill, I was like, don't let me bring my camera next year. I'm riding. I'm going to take that hill. And I think what you said is perfect, because it is about being together. It is about service, but it's also a challenge. Like it's not easy. And I think that there's that balance of challenge, but with community, that for people like you and me who maybe aren't going to gun for the podium spot, but we still want to perform really well. I don't want to go there and not perform to the best of my ability, but I still want to be with people. Like that's the real win, is getting out and being with people. And these rides are really the way that we can do it. And I want to get out in the course with the pros, you know, because that's probably the only time I'll ever get to do that.
Right. I want to ride alongside these guys that have been coaching me all along, and you know, and of course we're not going to show up like off the couch to take that hill. We're going to show up after we've been climbing hills like crazy people for the last 2 months. So, you know, you're like, I want to make my coach proud.
Yeah. I don't want them to push me up the hill, even though that's cool and it's a nice show of camaraderie. Get your hand off my back.
We do that with the kids.
Yeah.
And then my dad did that. He used to run a lot. That's a memory I have of my dad when I was biking and him pushing us up hills.
Nice. I wonder what that means. I'm teaching my youngest to ride a bike, and I always tell myself I don't remember it when I was a kid. I don't remember how my dad taught me, or I remember crashing a lot in the yard because it was softer than the pavement. That was where I learned how to do it. And my youngest is really afraid of it, and she's trying to not do it. And it's hard to motivate. And I think that I'm curious, and I'm setting this up for you because I'm curious what lessons you've learned from riding. And I believe that the bike is a huge parallel to the way we engage with life and how we take on its challenges. And my youngest is definitely afraid. And the learning process of not knowing how to do it, it's very rampant in our family that we want to be perfect at it right away. And we don't want to put in the time. But then every time we do it, we find out, oh my gosh, this is actually easy after we put in the time. And so for her, it's like, no, we have to learn how to ride the bike. Not because I need you to be a great bike rider, but because you need to use this as a way to show yourself that you can move through fear of not being great at something and the discomfort that comes with that.
Yeah, there's so many lessons from a bike. I actually have a little sign in my bathroom that has life lessons from a bicycle, and it has a whole bunch of comments about where you're headed with this. But I think that it's really taught me. I've been in some really challenging situations on the bike. I've gone over the handlebars. You get cuts and scrapes. You do the stupid things like fall with your feet still clipped in, and
Preach.
and you just keep going, right? But then you also get yourself in situations where you're like, I have no way out. I have I I have to just keep going. Otherwise, I don't have anybody to come get me. I just have to keep going. I'm not near a road. I'm on a trail. And you do, and then you realize like, I'm really capable of a lot more than I thought I was. If I made it through that, I can make it through anything. So yeah, there's all kinds of lessons that go along with it for sure. I say take those pedals off your daughter's bike. Make her push with her feet.
There you go. Yeah, we tried her on the Strider, and I don't know, like they could never get going fast. They were just too afraid to go fast. Maybe I should have thrown them down the hill, just like launched them or something. But then I was worried that they wouldn't trust their daddy. So confused.
Yeah.
What do I do?
We had a small a hill in like one of the neighbors' driveways that my youngest would learn on one of those Strider bikes. And so, then it just gets to the point where they want to go faster and faster, and then that's when the pedals come in.
Yeah, I love those ideas. And I think as a metaphor for life, there's immense gold in that, where as soon as you start catching your speed, as soon as you've figured it out, you want to go further and faster and harder and harder. And I know in my life, I've lived that way, where in this ability that I've developed, I want to go full force into it, but then also I learn the safety. I learn how to balance it and how not to go too far and too all in, because I've crashed in life so many times. And I don't know if you've had that experience in your personal life. Maybe it's at work, and it's tensions and conflict and things like that. But have you been able to use, exercise and wellness as a way to be balanced, so when conflicts arise that you're able to navigate those in a much healthier way?
Yeah, absolutely. It's always been my go-to in order to keep my sanity, to get me through schooling, to get me through the challenging times. So yeah, I just feel now with biking, I have just a little bit more structure to help me get through all of that. So, but yeah, it's definitely exercise and fitness is certainly my outlet. As one of my friends say, it's my Zoloft. It's my antidepressant.
Nice. That's a good, because you are a pharmacist, right?
Yep.
And so when you were talking earlier about the green, the checklists, and all of that, it feels very much to me. And there's this Carl Jung had these archetypes: the warrior, magician, the king, and the lover. And it was basically the energies that we all have. The sovereign, the queen could be the king, whatever. But the way we interact with these energies really dictates what we do and how we enjoy anything in life. And so a lot of times when I hear pharmacist or things like that and the checklist, it's very magician, it's very much warrior magician, where I want to have my thing I have to achieve. I want to know what I'm doing, and I want to go and I want to do it. And I don't have to get all, distracted in the details, whereas the magician wants a structured thing. And I imagine with pharmacy that you have to really have that checklist. Like, you can't deviate from it, because you can't just be like, maybe I'll give you a half, maybe I'll give you double, or, whatever. Like, no, the prescription is the prescription. So I am doing the prescription. Otherwise, bad things could happen. Do you have a feeling like that?
Yes. And you know what? It's probably, that's exactly how we are, right? Like, you can't just like, oh, it's kind of okay. Like, it's yes or no. It's like black or white. I mean, there is like gray area for sure, especially inpatient practice, but yeah. And then let's add on a complexity to that, Eric. So that's my personality type, and very much so. And then you add on the fact that my husband's a pilot. So now we're into even more checklists, and just the same, right? Like they're like head to head on just the same of checklists. Like, you got to go through this checklist in order to be ready to do this. But at the same time, for him, he's into aviation safety. So then now we're at the point where it's like, well, this could happen if you don't do it this way, or this could happen. And so it brings all kinds of challenges to us. But yeah, it's definitely it's ingrained in me, and it's hard sometimes to just be okay with not getting that green check mark.
Right. But do you think that's good? Do you think it's good to be okay with that in that setting?
Yes, because I still have to maintain that balance. So I got to
Yeah.
be okay with it. Like, find other ways that make me happy that day, that will still suffice for not making that workout or getting that green check mark. And in the end, like, I have to remind myself that I'm the only one really looking at this for the most part. Like,
Yeah.
maybe my coach is peeking at it every once in a while, but it's really, this is for me. So I have to make sure to keep it balanced.
But I think that's really good, though, that inborn accountability, that when you don't have to have people barking at you to do something, you can't really teach that. Or, well, I don't think I mean, I think you can develop it, but to have it that strongly inside yourself is a gift and a curse in a way, where you need it. But also, I'm really glad, as I'm hearing you, is some people don't have that. They don't have the ability to say, yes, this is a good thing. It's very healthy to be checklist, be green mark, be, in certain areas in life, it's actually really vital, like life and death in a lot of ways. Like, the plane has to stay in the air. So let's make sure we've gotten this figured out. Let's make sure we're not overdosing, very important. But that's not the worldview that we have. That's not applied every single place. So when we have a bike or an exercise, and I hear you talking about how you're able to then kind of realize the check mark isn't necessary, but I should still go for it. I still shouldn't just be like laissez-faire, but you're connecting in a healthy way to that very real part of yourself. And do you feel that as you do that, and as you learn that you're becoming, not that you're not a full person, but do you feel like it's opening you up to more of the fullness of who you are as a person?
Yeah, I do. And I feel like I can, teaching myself to be okay with that, and to be, I mean, this is something I struggle with all the time. I want to exercise every day. I want to. I have to. I feel as though I have to. I really don't, but I feel as though I do. Sometimes I get cranky with the family. Sometimes I get cranky with the husband if I get something derails that plan for me to do that day. And so it's really me trying to figure out, like, it's okay. It's all right. Like, it's not the end of the world. And I don't think I'm perfect at it. Let's be honest. We can give my husband some grace to put up with me, that I don't think I'm perfect, but I do feel as though I'm trying to get better at it.
Mm-hmm. Well, you have awareness, and that means you have choice, and you're making positive choices. And I'm gonna say one thing, and then I would like to open it up to anything that you feel you'd want to share or you want to talk about before we wrap up. But one of the powerful things that I'm taking away from this conversation, and it is absolutely vital, is every human being is alive and has a story some are wrapped in trauma, some are wrapped in just a really good backstory of wonderful living, and some are somewhere in between. But no matter what it is that we came from, we all have growth that can occur. And to deny that growth is to suppress the joy that you could experience, the fullness of a life you could have. And when we judge it and say, some people, not you, but some people have said, I don't have it bad enough, so this isn't for me. And I get really sad when I hear that, because your story is your story. Your life is your life, and the way that you are operating within it, and that life story you're writing through using your mind and your body, needs to empower you as the hero of your own story, regardless of the traumas that you did or didn't experience. There is just, based on us growing up in the world, there are going to be things that we suppressed in ourselves and need to reintegrate. And so the power in what I'm hearing from you is simple awareness, like just being aware that there is growth trying to occur because there's tension here. And I'm using a bike and community to address that and own what it is in myself that I have to own, and not blame other people. It doesn't matter what your story was. It just matters that you're doing something with it now. And I just love hearing that from you, because it's not all about like, well, I was, this, that, and that, this terrible thing, and this terrible, and this terrible. It's just like, no, I'm a living human being, and I have a life that had things in it that maybe have made me make choices to go this way. But now I'm reintegrating that information, and I'm realizing that it's just a checklist maybe I got to work about. Like, it can be anything. It doesn't have to be grand. It can be, but it's big to you perhaps, and that matters. So I want us all to get over the idea that we have to have this huge traumatic backstory for us to have a platform to share our story and be deserving of growth. So I want to thank you for sharing that with us, because I know that sometimes people feel that way. They don't feel like sharing because they're like, well, I don't really have much to share. I'm like, you absolutely do, because you're a human and you've lived a life. You absolutely have something to share.
I made it a very conscious effort to not apologize for not having deployed in a war, or of any of that, because that's not my purpose on this team. And I feel as though I'm equal to all of the riders in that sense. Like, veterans are veterans. And I think what you said too is really interesting. I want to relate a very traumatic event happened at school last week, and I asked him, do you want to talk to the counselor, or do you know, I said her name, do you want to talk? And he said, no, my problems aren't big enough for her. And I was like, no, actually, that's not actually true. That she's there for you to talk. Like, she's not there just because of, picking the kids that have the worst problems. And so I think if I could do anything to show that, for all of us, bringing awareness to mental health and bringing awareness to the mission of Project Echelon, and saying that it's okay to talk about these things, and it's okay to, like the talk we had at the cohort a couple weeks ago, you can get counseling. You don't have to. You can get it anytime. Anybody can get it. You don't have to think that you're completely broken just to seek advice and guidance in life. And so if I could do it, that would be like overarching goal about all of this, is that yes, Eric, we all have stories. We all have, and they're all different. And I'm doing my best to positively impact, and my kids, my husband, myself, my colleagues, my friends, everything, in a positive way. And if it means, dragging people out on bad days to get out on a bike ride and enjoy the fresh air, then that's what we're going to do.
I love it. If I could summarize it, don't wait for it to be a problem. Do something about it now. Don't wait.
Absolutely. Which is what we talked about in the beginning, right? It's exactly what we talked about in the beginning.
Coming full circle, like you and Jared on a ski hill.
Does that need to be our picture? It's like Jared on the ski hill, so you actually believe it's true?
I believe it. That should be the cover photo for the episode, though. Even though Jared's not in the episode, I'll be like, no, it's you'll understand. Just listen to the whole thing. I love it. Well, I want to say thank you very much for this conversation. It was great to finally connect with you in this way. And I know we'll have more conversation in the future. So as we close, thank you very much, Aimee.
Thank you so much, Eric.
All right. Well,
and hopefully I'll see you in October.
Oh man, did I just commit to that? I got to talk to my wife. I got to see if she's okay with it. I mentioned to her casually saying like, I really wanted to take the hill. She didn't say no. And I think she is figuring out she's a new job this whole year. And so she doesn't know her vacation, but I'm like, I think it can work. It's like a weekend. I'm pretty sure.
That's exactly where we are. My husband is like one of those crazy people that loves to climb. And so that was our goal for both of us for the end of this year. But then he got a new job and he doesn't know about his leave. And I'm kind of like, well, would he be mad if I went with him?
Surely not. It's service, right? And it's community. It's not just a selfish
You better
race.
not listen to this before I talk to him.
Yeah, there we go. Awesome. Okay, well, until next time, journey well, my friends.